March 7, 1943. Army Group Center Headquarters, Smolensk. Generaloberst Hermann von Kluge studied the intelligence report that his staff dismissed with contemptuous laughter. American Lend-Lease deliveries to Soviet Union, 2,400 tanks, 1,900 aircraft, 13,000 vehicles monthly. Soviet industrial capacity supplemented by American materials, aluminum, copper, steel alloys, precision instruments. His subordinates' amusement filled the briefing room as Oberst Wilhelm Hoffmann, Chief Intelligence Officer, concluded his presentation. Mein Herr, American scrap metal and Soviet incompetence cannot threaten German military superiority. Their crude T-34s remain inferior regardless of foreign assistance. What none of these confident Wehrmacht officers realized was that their mockery of American Lend-Lease aid would transform into their worst nightmare within 4 months. The inferior Soviet tanks they dismissed with such arrogance would soon be equipped with American steel, powered by American engines, and guided by American optics, creating the most devastating armored force in military history that would crush German forces at Kursk and change the course of World War II forever. Operation Citadel represented Nazi Germany's final attempt to regain strategic initiative on the Eastern Front. After the disaster at Stalingrad, German commanders believed one decisive victory could restore Wehrmacht supremacy and force Stalin to negotiate peace from a position of weakness. The plan was tactically elegant. Concentrated armored thrusts from north and south would encircle Soviet forces in the Kursk salient, eliminating 60 Soviet divisions while demonstrating continued German military superiority. Success would provide psychological vindication of German arms while creating strategic breathing space for defensive operations. General Heinz Guderian, Inspector General of Panzer Forces, had assembled the most powerful armored concentration in German military history. Over 780,000 men, 2,700 tanks, 2,000 aircraft, and 10,000 artillery pieces would participate in Operation Citadel, representing the cream of German military capability concentrated for one decisive blow. But German intelligence had systematically underestimated Soviet defensive preparations and the transformation of Red Army capabilities through American Lend-Lease assistance. What German commanders dismissed as primitive Soviet industry supplemented by American charity had actually created the most formidable defensive system in military history. Soviet preparations included 1.3 million men, 3,600 tanks, 2,650 aircraft, and 20,000 artillery pieces positioned in defensive positions 8 kilometers deep across 250 kilometers of front. More critically, Soviet T-34 tanks had been fundamentally transformed through American materials and technology that German intelligence either ignored or misunderstood. The stage was set for the largest tank battle in military history, a collision between German confidence and Soviet-American industrial cooperation that would determine the fate of the Eastern Front. Oberst Klaus von Manstein commanded the 11th Panzer Division's Reconnaissance Battalion, spearheading Army Group South's advance toward Kursk. At 37 years old, von Manstein embodied the Prussian military tradition. Aristocratic background, staff college education, and absolute confidence in German tactical superiority. His division possessed 160 of Germany's newest Panzer IV Ausf-G tanks, equipped with long-barreled 75mm guns capable of penetrating any known Soviet armor at combat ranges. Additional support included 89 Panzer III tanks, 45 assault guns, and elite Panzer Grenadier battalions trained in combined arms tactics that had dominated European battlefields since 1939. Von Manstein's tactical philosophy reflected broader German attitudes towards Soviet military capability. Russian equipment is crude but numerous. Their tactics are primitive but determined. American assistance provides quantity but cannot improve quality. German technical superiority and tactical expertise remain decisive advantages. His intelligence briefings reinforced these assumptions. German assessments of Soviet T-34 tanks acknowledged numerical superiority but emphasized technical inferiority. Thinner armor, inferior optics, primitive transmission systems, and poor crew training that negated any advantages in firepower or mobility. Major Friedrich Steiner, Mann von Manstein's intelligence officer, had studied captured Soviet equipment extensively. His reports consistently emphasized Soviet weaknesses. T-34 tanks suffer systematic mechanical failures. Crew training is inadequate for complex maneuvering. Most critically, their industrial production prioritizes quantity over quality, exactly what we expect from Bolshevik methodology. These assessments ignored mounting evidence that Soviet tank production had been revolutionized through American Lend-Lease materials and technology. High-grade steel alloys, precision manufacturing equipment, advanced metallurgy, and sophisticated electronics were transforming Soviet industrial capability at rates German intelligence couldn't comprehend. Across the lines, Lieutenant Colonel Dmitry Lavranenko commanded the 87th Guards Tank Regiment, equipped with T-34 Model 1943 tanks that incorporated American technological assistance in ways German commanders never imagined possible. Lavranenko had survived the battles of Moscow, Stalingrad, and Kharkiv, gaining experience that few tank commanders possessed. But more importantly, his regiment's T-34s represented the culmination of Soviet-American industrial cooperation that had transformed crude but effective tanks into sophisticated weapons platforms. Comrades, our tanks now possess American steel that doubles armor protection. American optical equipment provides targeting accuracy equal to German systems. American radio communications ensure coordination impossible in previous battles. The fascists will discover that underestimating Soviet-American cooperation was their fatal mistake.
American Lend-Lease assistance to the Soviet Union represented the largest international military aid program in history, but German intelligence consistently misunderstood its strategic significance. Rather than simple equipment transfers, Lend-Lease involved technological integration that revolutionized Soviet military capability. The transformation of Soviet T-34 production illustrated the profound impact of American industrial assistance. Standard T-34 Model 1941 tanks used Soviet steel alloys that provided adequate protection but suffered brittleness under extreme temperatures. American high-carbon steel deliveries allowed Soviet metallurgists to develop armor compounds that maintained strength at -40 degrees Celsius while providing 30% greater penetration resistance. Soviet tank engines had traditionally been the weakest component in T-34 design. Powerful but unreliable diesel systems that suffered frequent mechanical failure during extended operations. American aluminum deliveries enabled Soviet engineers to redesign engine components with lighter materials that reduced mechanical stress while improving field efficiency. But the most revolutionary improvement involved fire control systems. Soviet T-34s had always possessed excellent guns but lacked optical equipment for accurate long-range engagement. American deliveries of precision optical glass and range-finding equipment transformed T-34 gunnery from area bombardment to precision targeting. Technical Sergeant Boris Petrov, serving as gunner in Lavranenko's command tank, had experienced the transformation firsthand. Comrade Lieutenant Colonel, our new American optics allow target identification at 1,800 meters. Previous equipment limited engagement to 800 meters maximum. German tanks that could engage us safely are now within our killing range. The communications revolution proved equally significant. Soviet tank units had traditionally suffered poor coordination due to inadequate radio equipment that limited tactical flexibility. American Lend-Lease deliveries included thousands of radio sets specifically designed for armored vehicle installation. Lieutenant Viktor Markov, Lavranenko's communications officer, supervised installation of American radio equipment that provided previously impossible tactical coordination. Each tank can now communicate with regimental command and adjacent units simultaneously. German attacks that once achieved success through coordination advantages now face Soviet formations with equal communication capability. German intelligence reports acknowledged increased Soviet radio traffic but failed to understand its tactical significance. Intelligence assessments continued to emphasize Soviet communication deficiencies that no longer existed, creating dangerous blind spots in German tactical planning. July 5, 1943, 0430 hours. Oberst von Manstein's reconnaissance battalion encountered the first Soviet defensive position south of Kursk, expecting to brush aside token resistance before advancing to primary objectives. The initial contact seemed to confirm German expectations. Soviet infantry positions were overrun within 30 minutes, taking minimal casualties while advancing several kilometers. Von Manstein's confidence increased as his tanks encountered exactly the type of resistance German planning had anticipated. All units continue advance, von Manstein transmitted to his battalion commanders. Soviet resistance is collapsing according to predictions. Maintain momentum and exploit breakthrough opportunities. But at 8:47 hours, von Manstein's lead company encountered Soviet T-34s positioned in prepared defensive positions that demonstrated capabilities no German intelligence report had described. The engagement would shatter German assumptions about Soviet tank warfare forever. Captain Heinrich Weber, commanding the lead panzer company, transmitted the first indication that something fundamental had changed. Battalion commander, enemy T-34s are engaging at ranges exceeding 1,500 meters with accuracy previously impossible. Request immediate artillery support. Weber's Panzer IV Aus of G had been struck by a 76.2 mm round that penetrated frontal armor at a range German doctrine considered safe from Soviet tank fire. The precision of Soviet gunnery suggested optical equipment far superior to previous T-34 capabilities. Lieutenant Colonel Lavrenenko observed the engagement from his concealed position, studying German tactical responses through American-supplied optical equipment that provided unprecedented battlefield awareness. His assessment would prove prophetic. German tanks are maneuvering according to outdated intelligence about our capabilities. They assume safe engagement ranges that no longer exist. Each attack reveals German tactical assumptions we can exploit. The battle continued for 6 hours, resulting in German losses that shocked von Manstein's headquarters. 12 Panzer IV tanks destroyed, 8 Panzer III tanks knocked out, and minimal territorial gains achieved against what should have been secondary Soviet positions. Von Manstein's after-action report revealed the first cracks in German confidence. Enemy tank performance exceeded all previous assessments. T-34s demonstrated gunnery accuracy, armor protection, and tactical coordination that suggests systematic improvements in Soviet capability. But German intelligence had no answers. Their assessment methods remained focused on captured equipment from 1941 to 1942 that bore no resemblance to the American-enhanced T-34s now facing German forces. The intelligence failure would prove catastrophic as Operation Citadel continued. German military intelligence had achieved remarkable success against Western Allied forces, but Soviet operations presented challenges that German methodology couldn't address effectively. The closed nature of Soviet society, combined with rapid technological evolution through American assistance, created intelligence blind spots that proved fatal. Oberst Hoffmann's intelligence assessments continued to emphasize Soviet weaknesses that reflected 1941 conditions rather than 1943 reality. His reports to Army Group Center headquarters painted a picture of Soviet forces that existed only in German imagination. Soviet T-34 tanks remained technically inferior despite numerical advantage. Armor protection is adequate but not exceptional. Gunnery systems lack precision for long-range engagement. Crew training emphasizes mass assault over tactical sophistication. American Lend-Lease assistance provides logistical support but cannot address fundamental qualitative deficiencies. These assessments ignored mounting evidence from frontline units that Soviet capabilities had been transformed beyond recognition. Combat reports describing accurate long-range Soviet gunnery, improved armor protection, and sophisticated tactical coordination were dismissed as exaggeration or attributed to isolated encounters with elite Soviet units. Major Steiner's Technical Intelligence section had captured several T-34 tanks during recent operations, but their analysis failed to identify American technological integration. Visual inspection revealed tanks that appeared similar to earlier models, but metallurgical analysis and component testing weren't conducted due to time constraints and preconceived assumptions about Soviet capability. The captured T-34s confirm our assessments, Steiner reported to von Manstein. Soviet construction remains crude but effective. No evidence of significant technological advancement or foreign technical assistance. American Lend-Lease appears limited to basic materials rather than sophisticated equipment. Meanwhile, Soviet intelligence was conducting comprehensive analysis of German tactical methods, armor capabilities, and operational planning through sources German counterintelligence never suspected. The intelligence asymmetry favored Soviet forces to degrees German commanders couldn't imagine. Captain Alexei Fedorov, directing Soviet tank intelligence for the Kursk region, had compiled detailed assessments of German armor that provided tactical advantages no German unit possessed about Soviet forces. German Panzer IV Ausf G tanks possess excellent frontal armor but vulnerable side protection at ranges below 1,200 meters. Panzer III tanks cannot penetrate our improved armor at any practical range. Most importantly, German tactics assume engagement ranges where their optical advantages are decisive, ranges our American equipment now allows us to contest effectively. The transformation of Soviet military technology through American Lend-Lease assistance represented one of history's most successful examples of international industrial cooperation, but German commanders remained willfully ignorant of its scope and implications. American deliveries to the Soviet Union between 1941 and 1943 included materials and equipment that revolutionized Soviet military production. 387,600 tons of steel alloys for armor production, 956,700 tons of non-ferrous metals for aircraft and vehicle construction, 2.3 million tons of petroleum products for fuel and lubricants, 15,417 aircraft, including advanced fighters and bombers, 7,056 tanks, including M3 Lee and M4 Sherman models, 51,503 jeeps and trucks for tactical mobility, 380,135 field telephones and radio equipment, 956,700 tons of explosives and ammunition. But the most significant American contribution involved precision manufacturing equipment that allowed Soviet factories to achieve quality standards previously impossible. Lend-Lease deliveries included machine tools, measuring instruments, and metallurgical equipment that transformed Soviet heavy industry from quantity-focused to quality-competitive production. The Kharkov tank factory, relocated to the Urals after German occupation, had been rebuilt using American industrial equipment that enabled precision manufacturing of T-34 components. Factory director Ivan Zaltzman supervised installation of American machinery that revolutionized Soviet tank production. Comrade Stalin, American machine tools allow us to manufacture tank components with tolerances matching German standards. Our T-34 production now achieves consistency impossible under previous conditions. More importantly, American steel allows armor protection exceeding German expectations based on previous Soviet capability. Soviet metallurgist Sergei Korolev had supervised integration of American materials into T-34 armor production, achieving results that German intelligence never detected. American high-carbon steel, combined with Soviet chromium reserves, produces armor compounds with penetration resistance 40% greater than previous Soviet alloys. German anti-tank weapons designed to defeat 1941 Soviet armor cannot penetrate our current protection at combat ranges. The optical revolution proved equally significant. Soviet tank gunnery had traditionally suffered from inadequate sighting equipment that limited engagement ranges and accuracy. American deliveries of precision optical glass and sophisticated range-finding equipment transformed Soviet tank gunnery from area fire to precision engagement. Tank Commander Senior Lieutenant Pavel Rostrovov had experienced the optical transformation during training exercises that prepared Soviet forces for Kursk. Our new American telescopic sights allow target identification and engagement at ranges where German tanks consider themselves safe. Previous T-34 gunnery was effective but imprecise. Current capability matches German optical advantages that provided their primary tactical superiority. German confidence in Operation Citadel reached maximum levels during final planning conferences, where senior commanders expressed contemptuous dismissal of Soviet-American military cooperation that would soon prove their undoing. Generaloberst Hermann von Kluge, commanding 4th Panzer Army, summarized German attitudes during the final operational briefing. Gentlemen, Soviet forces possess numerical superiority achieved through American charity, but quantity cannot substitute for quality. German tactical expertise, technical superiority, and combat experience remain decisive advantages that no amount of foreign assistance can overcome. The assembled German commanders responded with enthusiastic agreement. Their collective experience included victories in Poland, France, the Low Countries, Norway, and the early Eastern Front campaigns. Soviet forces had never achieved tactical success against concentrated German armored formations using sophisticated combined arms tactics. General Walter Model, commanding 9th Army, reinforced the prevailing optimism. American Lend-Lease provides logistics and raw materials, but cannot address fundamental Soviet deficiencies in leadership, training, and tactical sophistication. Our intelligence confirms that Soviet equipment remains technically inferior regardless of foreign supplementation. Field Marshal Erich von Manstein, overall commander of Army Group South, expressed the supreme confidence that would prove catastrophically misplaced. Operation Citadel will demonstrate that German military superiority transcends material considerations. Soviet-American cooperation represents desperation rather than strength, exactly what we expect from our enemy's final gambit before inevitable defeat. These assessments reflected systematic intelligence failures that German methodology couldn't address. Closed Soviet society, rapid technological evolution, and preconceived assumptions about Soviet capability created blind spots that would prove fatal when German forces encountered the reality of transformed Soviet military power. Meanwhile, Soviet commanders were completing preparations for defensive operations that would exploit every German misconception while utilizing American technological assistance to maximum advantage. Marshal Georgy Zhukov, coordinating overall Soviet defensive planning, understood that German intelligence failures provided unprecedented tactical opportunities. Comrades, German forces will attack expecting to encounter 1941 Soviet capability. They will discover 1943 Soviet-American technological integration that their intelligence has failed to detect. Our defensive preparations exploit German overconfidence while our improved equipment neutralizes their traditional tactical advantages. July 4, 1943. Both sides completed final preparations for the battle that would determine the future of the Eastern Front. German confidence remained absolute, while Soviet forces positioned themselves to exploit technological advantages their enemies didn't believe existed. Oberst von Manstein conducted final equipment inspections that reinforced German tactical assumptions. His Panzer IV tanks possessed the most advanced German armor technology, equipped with guns capable of penetrating any known Soviet armor at engagement ranges exceeding 1,500 meters. Gentlemen, our tanks represent the pinnacle of German engineering excellence, von Manstein addressed his officers during final briefings. Soviet T-34s possess crude effectiveness, but cannot match our optical superiority, armor protection, or crew training. Tomorrow's battle will demonstrate German tactical supremacy that no amount of American assistance can challenge. His subordinate commanders shared this confidence. Their collective experience suggested that German technical and tactical advantages would prove decisive regardless of Soviet numerical superiority or American material assistance. Lieutenant Colonel Lavrenenko completed final preparations for defensive operations that would test every German assumption about Soviet capability. His T-34s had been positioned in prepared positions that maximized the advantages of American technological integration while minimizing German tactical strengths. Comrades, German forces will attack expecting to encounter 1941 Soviet capability. They will discover 1943 Soviet-American technological integration that their intelligence has failed to detect. Our defensive preparations exploit German overconfidence while our improved equipment neutralizes their traditional tactical advantages. Soviet defensive positions incorporated American engineering equipment, communication systems, and precision manufacturing that created defensive capabilities German intelligence had never detected. The stage was set for German confidence to collide with Soviet-American industrial cooperation. Artillery Commander Colonel Mikhail Katyukov supervised placement of rocket launchers supplied through American Lend-Lease that would provide fire support exceeding anything German forces had previously encountered from Soviet artillery. Our American rocket systems possess range and accuracy that will surprise German commanders accustomed to Soviet artillery limitations. When their tanks advance expecting minimal fire support opposition, they will encounter coordinated artillery strikes guided by American communications equipment. The final hours before Operation Citadel revealed the complete disconnection between German expectations and battlefield reality. Luftwaffe reconnaissance flights reported Soviet defensive positions that appeared exactly as German intelligence predicted: numerous but technically unsophisticated fortifications manned by forces equipped with familiar Soviet equipment. These observations reinforced German confidence that Soviet-American cooperation had failed to address fundamental Soviet military deficiencies. What German aerial reconnaissance couldn't detect was the technological revolution hidden within apparently familiar equipment and tactical positions. Hauptmann Ernst Rudel, commanding a Stuka dive bomber squadron supporting Operation Citadel, reported observations that seemed to validate German assumptions. Enemy positions appear extensive but poorly constructed. T-34 tanks visible in standard defensive positions. No evidence of sophisticated defensive systems or advanced equipment. Soviet forces appear to be following predictable defensive doctrine. Rudel's assessment reflected the limitations of visual reconnaissance against enemies who had learned to conceal technological advantages within apparently conventional defensive positions. Soviet camouflage techniques combined with careful concealment of American equipment created illusions that German intelligence accepted without question. Meanwhile, Soviet forces completed final preparations for defensive operations that would exploit every German misconception. American communications equipment linked defensive positions in coordination networks that German forces had never encountered from Soviet opponents. Lieutenant Colonel Ivan Chernyakhovsky, commanding the 60th Army's tank reserves, supervised final positioning of T-34s that would deliver the first shocking demonstration of Soviet-American technological integration. Comrades, German tanks will attack expecting to encounter 1941 Soviet capability. They will discover 1943 Soviet-American technological integration that their intelligence has failed to detect. Our defensive preparations exploit German overconfidence, while our improved equipment neutralizes their traditional tactical advantages. The mathematical precision of Soviet defensive planning, enabled by American analytical methods and equipment, had created tactical advantages that German experience-based planning couldn't anticipate. The collision between German confidence and Soviet-American capability would begin within hours. The German response revealed systematic inability to adapt quickly to battlefield realities that contradicted preconceived assumptions. Months of planning based on intelligence failures couldn't be abandoned when evidence suggested fundamental errors in German assessments of Soviet capability. Meanwhile, Soviet forces were exploiting every German tactical misconception while utilizing American equipment advantages to maximum effectiveness. The combination of improved technology and enemy overconfidence created tactical opportunities that Soviet commanders had never possessed against German forces. Marshal Georgy Zhukov, monitoring defensive operations from his command post, recognized that German intelligence failures were providing unprecedented advantages. Comrades, German forces continue attacking according to plans based on outdated intelligence. They have not adapted to our improved capabilities. Continue exploiting their overconfidence while our American equipment neutralizes their traditional tactical advantages. The afternoon of July 5th witnessed tank battles that demonstrated the complete transformation of Eastern Front armored warfare through Soviet-American technological cooperation. German panzer formations that had dominated European battlefields since 1939 found themselves outmatched by Soviet forces they had dismissed as technically inferior. Captain Ernst Barkmann, commanding the elite 1st Panzer Company, led the most experienced German tank crews into combat against Soviet positions that revealed capabilities no German training had prepared them to encounter. His company of 12 Panzer IV tanks represented the pinnacle of German armored capability. At 13:47 hours, Barkmann's company engaged Soviet T-34s at 1,400 meters range, expecting to achieve rapid kills using optical and gunnery advantages that had proven decisive throughout previous Eastern Front campaigns. The results shattered German confidence in their technological superiority. "Fire! Fire! Fire!" Barkmann ordered his gunner as they engaged the lead Soviet tank. His 75mm gun, firing at a T-34 from optimal range and angle, produced only sparks against armor that deflected German anti-tank rounds designed to penetrate any known Soviet protection. Lieutenant Colonel Lavronenko's command tank, equipped with American armor steel, absorbed 3 German hits without penetrating damage, while his gunner achieved immediate killing shots against German tanks using American optical equipment. The engagement demonstrated technological advantages that German overconfidence had prevented them from anticipating. "Comrade Lieutenant Colonel, German rounds are deflecting without damage," reported Tank Commander Sergeant Boris Petrov. "Our American steel armor provides protection exceeding German anti-tank capability at combat ranges. Meanwhile, our improved gunnery systems allow engagement of German tanks at ranges they consider safe." The mathematical precision of Soviet defensive fire coordinated through American communications equipment achieved hit rates that German doctrine had deemed impossible for Soviet crews. German tanks advancing in standard tactical formations found themselves under concentrated fire from multiple Soviet positions, coordinating attacks with unprecedented accuracy. Captain Barkmann's company lost 9 tanks in 17 minutes of combat while achieving only 2 Soviet kills. His radio transmission revealed the psychological shock of German tactical failure. "Regimental command. Enemy capabilities exceed all previous assessments. Request immediate withdrawal and reassessment of Soviet technological status." The engagement pattern was repeating throughout the Kursk battlefield as German forces discovered that Soviet-American cooperation had created armored capabilities that German intelligence had never detected or imagined possible. German intelligence officers attempting to analyze the first day's combat results faced evidence that their methodology had failed catastrophically. Every assessment of Soviet capability proved dangerously incorrect when confronted with battlefield reality. Oberst Wilhelm Hoffmann, Chief Intelligence Officer for Army Group Center, compiled after-action reports that revealed systematic failure in German intelligence analysis. Enemy tank performance indicates technological improvements far exceeding our assessments. Soviet T-34s demonstrate armor protection, gunnery accuracy, and tactical coordination that our intelligence methodology failed to detect. The intelligence effect extended beyond simple equipment assessment. German analysis had been based on captured Soviet equipment from 1941 to 1942 that bore no resemblance to American enhanced T-34s facing German forces in 1943. The closed nature of Soviet society, combined with rapid technological evolution through American assistance, had created blind spots that German intelligence couldn't address. Major Steiner's technical analysis revealed the scope of German miscalculation. Soviet armor steel demonstrates penetration resistance 40 to 45% greater than previous assessments. Optical equipment provides targeting accuracy matching German standards. Communication systems enable tactical coordination previously impossible for Soviet forces. But German command structure remained unable to adapt quickly to intelligence failures that contradicted months of operational planning. Senior commanders continued issuing orders based on outdated assessments, while battlefield realities demonstrated systematic errors in German understanding of Soviet capability. Generaloberst Hermann von Kluge, commanding 4th Panzer Army, received intelligence reports that challenged every assumption underlying Operation Citadel's tactical planning. Soviet resistance demonstrate capabilities that our intelligence failed to detect. Enemy forces possess technological advantages that neutralize German tactical superiority in armor, gunnery, and communications. Hoth's response revealed the institutional inability to acknowledge intelligence failure that would prove fatal to German strategic objectives. Intelligence assessments may require revision, but German tactical expertise and combat experience remain decisive advantages. Continue offensive operations according to planned objectives.
Meanwhile, Soviet intelligence was providing accurate, real-time assessment of German tactical responses that allowed exploitation of every German weakness while maximizing advantages provided by American technological assistance. July 6, 1943. The second day of Operation Citadel revealed that German forces were confronting not just improved Soviet equipment, but systematic technological and tactical transformation that German planning had never anticipated. German casualties for the first 24 hours exceeded worst-case projections, while territorial gains remained minimal. Army Group South had lost 187 tanks while advancing less than 8 kilometers. Army Group North had achieved even poorer results, losing 134 tanks for territorial gains measured in hundreds of meters. The casualty disparity revealed the complete reversal of Eastern Front tactical dynamics. German forces that had once achieved favorable casualty ratios against Soviet opponents now faced enemy formations that were inflicting disproportionate losses while suffering minimal casualties in return. General Walter Model, commanding 9th Army, transmitted the first admission that Operation Citadel was failing to achieve its tactical objectives. Enemy resistance exceeds all planning assumptions. Soviet forces demonstrate technological and tactical capabilities that our intelligence failed to assess accurately. Request permission to modify operational objectives. Model's assessment reflected growing recognition among German field commanders that Soviet-American cooperation had created military capabilities that German overconfidence had prevented them from understanding or preparing to counter. Oberst von Manstein's reconnaissance battalion had been reduced to 40% strength while failing to achieve significant penetration of Soviet defensive positions. His survivors reported encountering Soviet forces that possessed every technological advantage German doctrine had assumed belonged exclusively to German forces. Soviet tanks engage at ranges exceeding our capability, von Manstein reported to division headquarters. Their armor deflects our anti-tank rounds, while their gunnery achieves precision that suggests advanced fire control systems. Most critically, their tactical coordination demonstrates communication capabilities that our intelligence never detected. The reports arriving at German headquarters painted a consistent picture of intelligence failure so comprehensive that operational planning based on faulty assessments was proving catastrophically inadequate for battlefield conditions. Lieutenant Colonel Lavrenenko observed German tactical confusion while coordinating Soviet defensive operations that exploited every German misconception. Comrades, German forces continue attacking according to outdated intelligence. They assume tactical advantages that our American equipment has neutralized. Their overconfidence becomes our advantage, as their attacks reveal systematic weaknesses we can exploit. July 12, 1943. Soviet forces launched Operation Little Saturn, a coordinated counteroffensive that would demonstrate the full extent of Soviet-American technological integration while exploiting German tactical weaknesses revealed during the failed Citadel offensive. The Soviet counterattack utilized American equipment advantages that German forces had never encountered in offensive operations. T-34 tanks equipped with American steel, optics, and communication systems achieved tactical results that shattered remaining German confidence in their military superiority. Lieutenant Colonel Lavrenenko led the 87th Guards Tank Regiment in attacks that demonstrated the complete transformation of Soviet armored capability. His T-34s advanced using American navigation equipment, communicated through American radio systems, and engaged German positions with American optical equipment that provided unprecedented tactical advantages. All units advance according to coordinated fire plan, Lavrenenko transmitted, using American radio equipment that enabled tactical coordination impossible under previous Soviet conditions. The Soviet offensive achieved breakthrough rates that German defensive doctrine had never anticipated from Soviet forces. American equipment integration had created tactical capabilities that German planning had never considered possible for Soviet armored formations. Captain Ernst Barkmann, now commanding rearguard actions as German forces retreated, witnessed tactical performance that contradicted every assumption about Soviet military capability. Enemy tanks demonstrate mobility, coordination, and firepower that exceeds German capability in similar tactical situations. Their offensive operations reveal systematic technological advantages rather than isolated equipment improvements. Soviet tank formations advanced using American trucks for logistics, American radios for coordination, and American steel for protection while engaging German positions with precision that German doctrine had deemed impossible for Soviet forces to achieve. Tank Commander Senior Lieutenant Pavel Rotmistrov led breakthrough operations that penetrated German defensive positions with mathematical precision enabled by American technological assistance. Comrade Lieutenant Colonel, our American equipment provides tactical advantages that German forces cannot counter. Their defensive positions assume Soviet limitations that no longer exist. The psychological impact on German forces proved as devastating as the tactical results. Soldiers who had been trained to expect technological and tactical superiority over Soviet opponents found themselves outmatched by enemies possessing superior equipment and coordination capabilities. July 20, 1943. Statistical analysis of Operation Citadel revealed the mathematical scope of German intelligence failure and the devastating effectiveness of Soviet-American technological cooperation in modern armored warfare. German casualties exceeded 200,000 men killed, wounded, or missing. Tank losses approached 1,500 vehicles, including Germany's most advanced armor. Aircraft losses exceeded 1,800 planes. The offensive capability that Operation Citadel was designed to restore had been systematically destroyed by Soviet forces German commanders had dismissed as technically inferior.
Soviet casualties remained significantly lower despite defending against the largest German offensive since 1941. Tank losses were quickly replaced through American Lend-Lease deliveries, while German armor losses couldn't be replaced due to industrial limitations and resource shortages. The mathematical comparison revealed the complete transformation of Eastern Front warfare through American industrial assistance. Soviet forces had achieved favorable casualty ratios while demonstrating technological capabilities that neutralized traditional German advantages in equipment, training, and tactical doctrine. Generaloberst Heinz Guderian, Inspector General of Panzer Forces, compiled the final assessment that acknowledged the scope of German miscalculation. Soviet forces demonstrate technological capabilities that our intelligence failed to detect or assess accurately. American assistance has transformed Soviet military capability beyond our planning assumptions. Guderian's technical analysis revealed systematic German failure to understand the scope and significance of Soviet-American cooperation. Enemy tank armor provides protection exceeding our anti-tank capability. Enemy gunnery systems achieve accuracy matching German standards. Enemy communications enable tactical coordination that negates German advantages in battlefield control. The broader strategic implications extended beyond tactical defeat. Germany's last offensive capability had been consumed in operations that achieved no strategic objectives while revealing Soviet-American technological advantages that German planning had never anticipated. Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, director of German intelligence, provided the final assessment that acknowledged institutional failure in German intelligence methodology. Our analysis of Soviet capability proved systematically inadequate for operational requirements. American assistance created technological transformation that our intelligence services failed to detect, assess, or counter. August 1943. The aftermath of Kursk revealed that German mockery of Lend-Lease had masked the most successful international military cooperation in warfare history. Soviet-American technological integration had created military capabilities that German overconfidence prevented them from understanding until battlefield defeat made denial impossible. American Lend-Lease deliveries to the Soviet Union reached maximum effectiveness following Kursk, providing technological and industrial support that maintained Soviet advantages while German capability declined due to resource limitations and industrial bombing. Monthly American deliveries included materials that continued transforming Soviet military capability. 47,000 tons of steel alloys for continued armor improvement. 89,000 tons of non-ferrous metals for aircraft and vehicle production. 156,000 tons of petroleum products maintaining Soviet operational capability. 2,400 vehicles per month replacing Soviet losses while expanding tactical mobility. 12,000 radios per month improving Soviet communication advantages. 890 aircraft per month supplementing Soviet air power. The statistical comparison revealed the industrial mathematics that determined Kursk's outcome. American production capacity supplemented Soviet industrial capability while German resources were consumed faster than they could be replaced. Dr. Albert Speer, German armaments minister, acknowledged the industrial reality that German planning had failed to address. American assistance to Soviet Union exceeds our previous assessments by factors of 300 to 400%. Their industrial cooperation creates capability enhancement that German production cannot match under current conditions. Soviet industrial capacity, enhanced through American technological assistance, had achieved production rates that maintained tactical advantages while German industrial capability declined due to strategic bombing and resource limitations. The mathematical advantage was decisive and irreversible. Lieutenant Colonel Lavrenenko, now commanding an entire tank brigade equipped with improved American-supplied T-34s, observed the strategic transformation that German mockery had failed to prevent. Comrade General, American assistance has provided technological advantages that German forces cannot counter. Their intelligence failures created tactical opportunities that our cooperation with American industry allows us to exploit systematically. September 1943.
German military leadership was forced to acknowledge that their mockery of American Lend-Lease had been based on fundamental misunderstanding of modern industrial warfare. Soviet-American cooperation had achieved technological integration that transformed the Eastern Front balance of power irreversibly. Field Marshal Erich von Manstein provided the final military assessment that acknowledged German strategic failure. Soviet forces demonstrate technological and tactical capabilities that exceed German advantages in equipment, training, and operational experience. American assistance has created military transformation that German planning failed to anticipate or counter.
The human cost of German overconfidence proved devastating beyond statistical casualties. An entire generation of German tank crews, pilots, and infantry had been sacrificed in operations based on intelligence failures that senior commanders had refused to acknowledge until battlefield reality made denial impossible. Oberst von Manstein, one of the few surviving German commanders from Kursk, provided personal testimony about the transformation of Eastern Front warfare. We attacked expecting to encounter Soviet forces with familiar limitations and technological deficiencies. We discovered enemies possessing superior equipment, superior coordination, and tactical advantages that our arrogance prevented us from understanding. The psychological impact on German military morale proved as decisive as tactical defeat. Soldiers who had been trained to expect technological superiority over Soviet opponents had discovered enemies possessing every advantage German doctrine had assumed belonged exclusively to German forces. Soviet forces, equipped with American steel, American optics, American communications, and American industrial support, had achieved military capabilities that German mockery had dismissed as impossible. The mathematical precision of Soviet-American cooperation had proven more decisive than German military tradition, tactical expertise, or combat experience. Marshal Georgy Zhukov's final assessment captured the strategic significance of Soviet-American technological cooperation. American assistance provided industrial capacity and technological advancement that enabled Soviet forces to achieve military capabilities exceeding German advantages. Their intelligence failures created opportunities that our cooperation with American industry allowed us to exploit decisively. In the depths of the Kursk battlefield, hundreds of German tanks rested as monuments to the catastrophic consequences of intelligence failure and military arrogance. German commanders who had mocked American Lend-Lease as irrelevant charity had discovered that Soviet-American cooperation created the most formidable military force in modern warfare. The transformation was mathematically precise and strategically decisive. German forces that had dominated European battlefields through technological and tactical superiority had been systematically defeated by enemies possessing superior equipment, superior coordination, and industrial support that German planning had never anticipated. American Lend-Lease had achieved more than equipment delivery. It had created technological integration that revolutionized Soviet military capability, while German overconfidence prevented adaptation to battlefield realities that contradicted preconceived assumptions about enemy limitations. The mockery had ended. The reckoning was complete. Soviet T-34s equipped with American technology had crushed Wehrmacht confidence at Kursk, proving that industrial cooperation between determined allies could overcome any advantage military tradition or tactical expertise might provide.